Hey all, it's Nim or Nim McCree if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today, we're going to do some wild speculation and reaction to the deep dive panel for The War Within. Apparently you guys liked my cinematic reaction trailer, which if you haven't seen, there's a link at the card right up there. And without further ado, let's get into it. We'll have the YouTube plug stuff happening later, but for now, we're here to see this, and let's speculate.
Con, we're starting the day off right. Here's the World of Warcraft deep dive.
Seriously, I think that's good. Start with your strongest foot forward. I think that's the thing. Now, this is probably after the announcement, based on the fact they gave that the title there. But start with your best foot forward. It's one of the reasons why the Diablo Immortal thing went so bad, is because it's like, this is your trade show, and you wanted to do a mobile app. Oh man, that music. That's epic music. I love it. Hey, is that Ian? It's Ian Hosakostas.
Good afternoon, Blizzcon.
Also, that shirt. What sword? Yeah, look, I love it. I love that they're embracing the joke. Like, I love that they're embracing the community joke. It's yes. That's the type of thing I like. It's one of the things I liked about Dragonflight, is that the writing was allowed to be a little bit more flexible and fleshed out. It felt better. Like, the little storylines, like the old dwarf storyline, he's actually an old dragon, and the story changes based on which class sits with them. It's fantastic.
So good to be back. Whether you are here in the arena with me right in front of me, whether you're watching from elsewhere in the halls, whether you're joining us from the comfort of your home, thank you for taking the time to join me for this deeper, closer look at what's coming next in the War Within.
Now, listen. Eventually, there's going to be a beta test, right? If you pre-purchase the Epic Edition, you get guaranteed access to the beta. I am not saying that people should do that. I bought it because I know I'm going to play the game, and I want the beta access, and I'm a content creator, so I can, that makes sense for me to do. What I am going to say is that if you happen to get beta access, when it happens, right now, look at me, and let's make a deal. Submit all the bugs. And if you guys send me screenshots of the bugs that you submitted, what we'll do is we'll do a whole big community compilation of how we tried to make the best expansion ever. All right? Deal? Deal.
I love you too. I love you, BlizzCon. So Morgan and Maria gave you kind of a sneak peek at some of what's coming. Today I want to spend a bit more time giving you more information on the core features of War Within, as well as a few things that didn't get mentioned at all yesterday.
All right,
So,
yeah, let's do it.
Beginning, just a little teaser there. So to begin, let's talk delves.
So delves, we're gonna dig into the topic. Oh no, all jokes aside, that's important. I like this. Also, you gotta look. Ian Hosakostas takes a lot of flack and a lot of heat from the community, but ultimately, I think he cares a lot, because you wouldn't stay in that position if you didn't care. Okay, we're back. Had a phone call, had to do that, but luckily we're good. So let's get on to the delves.
So what is a delve? As you heard yesterday, delves are these quick, bite-sized, epic adventures for flexible-sized groups, either solo or with up to 5 players. They are.
I genuinely hope that it is not Torghast 2.0. Or if it has to be Torghast 2.0, I hope that it's like Torghast in Alpha, where you can get these broken builds and just run through things. Because if it's all self-contained, what is the problem with letting players just run roughshod over the content? Because as soon as you leave that instance, power's gone. Doesn't matter.
Or role agnostic, so it doesn't matter if you're a couple DPS, if you're a healer and a tank, if you're a solo healer, we're going to make it work. We're going to meet you where you are, how you want to play.
Now, that is that's a very cool statement. Meet you where you are, how you want to play. It's role agnostic. So let's think about that, right? Like, there are people that I know that like to play healer. That's all they like to do. They like to heal, heal, heal. So if you're telling me that it's viable for that, then that means that it's going to be, depending on what they tie to it. Obviously, will it be mandatory? Will it just be cosmetic? Will it be something cool? Will there be a storyline? We don't know. But I'm going to assume the best, right? Because here's the thing. The War Within, the launch trailer was great, BlizzCon was great. Chris Metzen was great. So I'm going to assume the best. I'm going to assume that running these delves, you're going to get some resources. They're going to help you progress your character. They're going to be balanced and they're going to be fun. Because I think that Blizzard has learned from Torghast. And actually, that we saw that they learned from Torghast as it became better as the Shadowlands went on. Now, in the alpha, it was great, and then not so great, and then it got better. So I think that I got faith in you guys. I got faith in them.
Delves are a new endgame pillar. This is a permanent addition to World of Warcraft going forward and represents kind of a capstone to the outdoor world experience.
Okay, now that's cool. That is, because here's the thing. Ultimately, what's the progression curve? You level, and then you do some world quests, and then you do some dungeons, and maybe some more world quests, and you eventually reach the end of world quest gear, and now you're into Mythic Plus, and you're into raiding or PvP. To have a kind of a capstone, as it were, as you put, for delves, is a really cool idea, and yeah, I'm here for it.
We've had dungeons, we've had raids, we've had organized PvP, and I think we've had some stuff for outdoor world players to dabble in. But if you wanted progression, if you wanted goals, if you wanted a deeper, more structured experience, frankly, we were letting you down.
All right, you know what? Hey, accountability right there, I'm here for it. Awesome. This is, again, saying that is what makes me have a lot of faith in the war within and Blizzard moving forward. Because to think that these expansions are made a few years in advance, so you see trends, you see ideas, you have things that are built, and then you have to kind of forecast forward, and markets and trends change. So, yeah. Oh, wait, way to go, Ian. I think that was a great way to phrase that.
We want to change that. That's what delves represent in World of Warcraft.
Okay.
So structuring this, really we want to approach it as something that you are going to be engaging in all season long with variety and flexibility in how you approach it, and the replayability of the content is kind of a mainstay of what it's all about, but also want to build in progression. Now, I think if you're an outdoor world-focused player, a lot of the time, it's just about kind of spending your time doing a thing, going to a place, completing an event, but there aren't necessarily goals to work towards. There aren't necessarily reasons to be excited about getting an item upgrade because it's going to...
So, for example, I want to talk about this in the sense that, the box of mystery in Torghast, again, it's the Maw dailies, the where there's something you're working for, a progression. You become better at what you do. Now, if there's like a storyline or, a narrative going along with these delves or some type of, cosmetic reward at the end and, it's account-wide, it can be great. And obviously he's going to get into that. But I like the idea, again, of progression, because what do you do normally? I know in Dragonflight, okay, hey, I hit 70. Boom, all right, now we got to do pre-BIS raid, right? Because, the raid team they want to do pre-BIS. So, okay, what do we do? Well, we go farm the rares and try to get those super rares to get the items. Then if we farm and get lucky, then I've got some gear. I can use that gear to get me into the raid. So now we go into normal. I'm a little overpowered. We, boom, mow down the bosses, and there we go. And then, a week later, we got our Mythic Plus set up, and now we just start running that through. And what happens in the open world? I do it for Emissary. I do it for the weekly. And that's it. So the fact that it kind of, through natural progression before, just withers and falls off, unless you're doing alts or wanting to farm rep or something. And look, I like farming rep. I'm a fine. It's really fun for me. It's fine for me. I really want them, and I want you to look at me right now. They absolutely should bring back reputation tabards for dungeons.
Let you do something you haven't been able to do before. A difficulty progression built into delves is going to enable us to offer that. Now, there's a lot of lessons we've learned over the years from building this type of content, whether it was Torghast and Shadowlands, Island Expeditions, scenarios. You can throw in Horrific Visions in that list. We've learned a lot about how to tune these sorts of experiences, how to design them for flexible scaling groups of different sizes, of different role compositions.
I will say that there have been a lot of little one-off systems. He's right, and I forgot about heroic scenarios. I remember in Mists of Pandaria, like, the heroic scenarios were great. 3-player scenarios, you get 150 valor for it. It was fantastic. It was a great way to get it. They weren't that hard, especially as I was heroic and mythic rating, I believe. I don't know if mythic was out yet. I know it was heroic rating. And we were doing Siege of Orgrimmar, and so I'd run through there and be like, yeah, I got my Valor points, no problem. Easy peasy, and, especially after running them a couple of times, like, I know exactly what to do. And I was a tank at that point, so it was like, I'm good. Let me lead. So yeah, the fact that they're acknowledging that there are lessons learned, again, this is good, because the height of hubris is to think that you are never wrong. And the worst part about thinking that you're never wrong is that all I have to do is fool you once, and then boom, your mechanisms to check yourself are shut off because, well, obviously I can't be wrong. I mean, look at me. I'm just some mediocre YouTuber. Obviously I know everything, right? Come on.
Positions about, what's fun and what isn't. But we've also learned, based on your feedback, about what not to do in some cases.
Oh my God, please, yes. Yes, all the feedback, please. Please mention the feedback, please, please, please. Because here's the thing. Torghast was fun. Mandatory Torghast was not as fun.
In terms of how we structure it, how we present it. I think a key aspect of saying this is an endgame pillar is that it's an offering in parallel to the others, to dungeons, to raids. If you want to do this, if this is your jam, if this is your type of gameplay, we're there for you, and we want this to be as deep as you want it to be. If you're happy running Mythic Plus and you just want to focus on that, we're not looking to add another item to the checklist of things you feel you have to do to compete. It's an alternative, unlike Torghast, which is...
That is fantastic. Saying it's an alternative. The fact is, like, we don't want to add another item to the checklist. Because think about it this way, right? Let's say you're a hardcore progression raider, right? Like, you are in there, you're grinding it out, okay? So what do you need to do? You need to run your raids every week. You need to run several Mythic Plus every week at as high level as you can to fill out your vault. You want to try to upgrade your gear and keep everything balanced. You have to keep up on the patch notes and changes to see what's gonna change. You look at stat weights and priorities. There's so much you have to do. And then when you get into the group, you gotta play well. And that can be the hard part for a lot of people. I know that I sometimes am what's known as a gray parser. I mean, I can get to purple and higher than that, but there are times where I'm a gray parser and it's like, I'm trying my best, but it's not great. And then there are things that are changes and there are breakpoints. And all that being said, there's a lot. So him explicitly acknowledging that they don't want to add another checkbox is the right attitude.
Something that, we did kind of say, everyone has to do this, whether you like it or not, whether you'd rather do something else or not. That gets back to some of the philosophies that Morgan touched on yesterday and how we're approaching designing and evolving World of Warcraft. We want to meet you where you are. We want to respect your time. We want to offer you the ability to choose how you want to spend that time each day, each night in Azeroth. And
that's great, because more player freedom means the players do what they want, and then when they're done, okay, maybe they log out. Having so many mandatory things eventually leads to, well, I missed it, why am I even going to try? Why? Because I'm already behind. That means I got to wait until, the cap, and then I'll eventually catch up. So, yeah, I like it. I'm liking this. Is that Breach?
So in terms of the character of Delves and what a specific one will be like, the vibe here is about unraveling mysteries, it's about exploring, it's about feeling like an extension, a seamless extension of the outdoor world experience.
Okay.
These are not dungeons. Every dungeon is ultimately about killing a series of bosses or boss-like encounters, and the dungeon is over when you kill the final baddest boss at the end of the dungeon. And that's kind of the structure that they all have to conform to. As much as we try to vary the formula a bit, that's pretty much what they're going to be.
Well, especially with Mythic Plus, too, as you have to kill a certain amount of enemies and all of the bosses to hit both flags and dungeons complete. And ideally, you do it in under a time frame. And so so I mean, Mythic Plus only reinforces that. So the fact that they're trying to vary it a little bit is a good idea.
In the outdoor world, things are a bit different. We can, break some more of the rules. And really, at the end of the day, the one consistent thing about Delves is that they're all going to end with a room full of treasure. Some of those will have a final boss guardian in front of them. Others, you may be, just exploring, traversing the delve, flipping switches, solving a puzzle, defeating lieutenants, gathering things that you need to open the vault door. We can vary the gameplay, we can vary the feel of the experience. These are going to be instanced experiences, but they are seamless. When you walk up to, this, as I'll show in a second, a fog door at the entrance to a cave, at the entrance to a structure, you're just going to walk in, no loading screen, and now you're in a delve.
That's fantastic. I like that. The seamless, because again, while I understand instance content might be slightly immersion breaking as there's a loading screen, it doesn't bother me personally so much because, okay, I'm loaded into an instance, fine, now we're here, we do the dungeon, we do the story, we do the raid, we do whatever, that's fine. But if you're telling me it's going to be seamless, and, as a Dark Souls player, like the fog door, I game recognize game, right? That puts a little joy in my chest. And just like this.
You want to make sure this really feels like part of and an extension of the outdoor world. Now, as part of an in-game pillar, that means we're going to tie this into seasons. So, as well as a narrative progression over the course of a given season, there will be increasing rewards, increasing difficulty, and a change of pace, whether you're in Season 1 of War Within, Season 2, and so forth.
Okay.
Part of that is going to be the NPC companion that will be accompanying you on your adventures.
Now that's okay. So I've not seen this yet. So let's speculate a little bit here. If the NPC companion can get gear and level up and learn extra abilities, kind of like a Poke, right? Or Poke, or Pokopok, from Shadowlands in Zareth Mordris, the little cute little round guy who was always excited and animated to see. We love him. He's great. Let's throw him on the screen. Boop. Okay. Now that we've done that, he's great. But yeah, so if your NPC companion can do more things and establish, and you can unlock abilities as you run delves and as you go through the seasons, that'll be a fantastic time. Forgive me, this energy drink is really good, but it's a little carbonated.
The Season 1 companion, as we mentioned yesterday, is our good friend, Bran Bronzebeard. No.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I love Bran Bronzebeard. Look, I remember him messing on the consoles in, I think it was the Halls of Lightning or Halls of Stone, maybe the Halls of Lightning. No, it was the Halls of Stone. It was the Halls of Originate. Boy, there are a lot of halls in this game. There really are a lot of halls in this game. Lightning, Stone, Origination, things. But where he's doing that and he hammers stuff and you gotta actually defend him at the end. It's great. Like I love Bran.
What does this mean? What does a companion mean in practice? Well, it's a few things. One, it's definitely a narrative hook. It gives us a chance to help give context for your adventures, kind of narrate what you're going through. But also, it's a chance to kind of play with the mechanics and complement your play style.
Okay.
As Bran adventures with you, you might find some gear for Bran. You might be able to gear Bran up. You'll be able to spec him and customize his abilities to complement what you or your friends are bringing to the group.
Now that is fantastic. That is an absolutely fantastic thing, because now instead of it just being like, well, I'm a DPS and I bring another DPS, it's you can make him a tank, you can make him a healer, you can do some other cool things, maybe a little utility, maybe a little support. And imagine having like you could turn him into a ranged, into a pet tank basically, and then you're in the back like, hey, Bran, you handle that. I'm gonna just do stuff and heal you and keep you alive. That's what again, the player flexibility is important. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that how easy is it to do that? It should initially be as hard as it's going to be day 1. And day 2, a little easier. Day 3, a little easier. Day 4, a little easier. And then by the end of the season, let's say halfway through the season, at the mid-season patch, it's as easy as it's going to get that season to change or to acquire gear. And then it's fine, goes along until the second season, bam, first day of the second season, as hard as it's going to be, and then it follows that same pattern. Because that way, as people play, you're not punished for being unlucky. But those that are lucky get to have their momentary power boost that ultimately all comes out in the wash.
You want more survivability, whether you want help with someone's a tank, whether you want more control, this can help us balance the experience as well and give you another vector for your progression over the course of the journey. Now, I know this has kind of been very high level. I want to just give a couple of specific examples, just kind of a day in the life of someone jumping into delves in War Within. So let's say you are casually journeying across the Isle of Dorne and its pastoral beauty, and you come across this structure with that fog door set into it, and you decide to venture in. So as you venture in, you are, as I mentioned, seamlessly in the delve, and you will find, just huddled inside the entrance, a group of expedition scouts who have come to this place. They've heard reports of great secrets, great treasures, powerful relics stored within, but they've been unable to proceed further. Because, they tell you, and Bran is among them, mind you, they tell you, this place, there's an unnatural, there's a disturbing darkness that has settled over this entire vault, and we can't proceed. Fortunately, they have in their possession a relic that they have brought that is an enchanted candle that can light the way. It has a little light radius around it. If you think back to the Vault of the Warden's dungeon, if you remember that in Legion, what the basement was like.
Yes! Oh, okay, that's a cool little thing. I remember, so before he goes into that, so Vault of the Wardens in the basement, you had an orb of light. Generally the tank would take the orb of light, walk around, pick up all the enemies, and then they would take reduced damage if they were in the shadow, and eventually, if they were in too darkness, it was too dark where they were, you couldn't attack them. But if you brought the light, then you could attack them and interrupt, do all these things. It was a great time. And then later that happened with Cordana Fellsong, with having the walls of her ghosts and the avatar of Shadow that you had to kill, because she would take like 99% reduced damage, and it would fly things off. It was a great time. It was a really cool dungeon mechanic.
Where it really felt like just like a dark, scary place, but you could have this beacon in the darkness to guide your way. You have one of those.
Then again, I was a paladin healer, so like all I did was shine light. So I don't know why that didn't work, but I mean, I get it from a mechanical point of view. You don't want to be able to be so unbalanced that, oh, you brought a group of paladins? Well, now with Divine Storm, it lights everything up, so why do we even need to grab the beacon?
But, they tell you, it has very limited fuel. They dare not proceed on their own because they worry they're just going to get trapped in the darkness and destroyed by the terrors within. But you, of course, being the champion who's come along, you're up to the task. So you take that candle with its light radius that will begin to shrink progressively as your limited fuel burns.
That's really cool. That is a cool thing, because now it's not just, oops, it's gone. It's like, okay, hey, we're bright, and then we're fading. And again, it allows, he talks about, a feeling of oppression, a feeling of darkness. And I like that, because now it's not just, oh, I have to min-max a buff. It's a visual indicator. And while I'm sure at some place, things will be optimized and whatever later on, and weak auras and everything will be tracked, it's a cool concept. And I'm here for cool concepts, because for the longest time, Blizzard was not leading, they led the pack, and then they kind of fell off a little bit, and now they're trying to regain those reins, and I'm here for that. New ideas are good. Expressive, environmental storytelling is good. And if you don't believe that, well then, hopefully you didn't like Elden Ring or Bloodborne, because that was expressive environmental storytelling. And no, I'm not equating these two games, but I'm saying there are similar things with that concept.
And you take some steps into the delve. Now, who do you find in here? Well, as it happens, you run across fellows like this guy. More jacked than your average kobold.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of kobolds in here. And as you know, as any World of Warcraft player knows, where you find kobolds, you're going to find candles.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Ian, for that. It's like, take candle. Sadly, I take candle. But I love that. I absolutely love that, because that's a reference to just so much lore, and that reference wouldn't work anywhere else but World of Warcraft. So it's fantastic. And actually last night on stream we were going through some of the Elwyn Forest stuff, and I had to take 8 large kobold candles as part of a quest.
And this guy's going to put up a fight, but it being World of Warcraft and all, you're going to take his candle. And you're going to take the candles of his allies and his brethren. And, that will help fuel this magic light that you have, help keep the light burning so that you can traverse the entire delve, defeat a couple of lieutenant-type enemies, bosses, solve a puzzle or two, and at the end, you make your way into the vault room that Bran is able to open once you bring him there, and you find this mock-up, work in progress of a treasure room, heaping with riches, treasure chests of various shapes and sizes.
Okay, now before we go on, let's speculate a little bit. If there are objectives, maybe I have more keys. The more keys that I have, the more treasure chests I can open. The more treasure chests I open, the more progress I can make. So that's the speculation. Let's see what Ian says.
Some of the smaller ones, you can just walk up and open, collect a range of items, currency, rewards, you name it. But you'll find a couple of extra large, resplendent chests in this room. Those may require special keys to open.
Okay.
Now, those keys you would obtain from doing kind of outdoor content, weekly quests. They're a bit more limited in how you can get them.
Okay, so I was about half right there. So think of it, the way I'm thinking of it right now is similar to Elder Charms of Good Fortune, right? So if we link all the way back, let's rewind back to Mists of Pandaria. It's a great time. Eternal Flame as a hot, ticks, scales off mastery as a prot paladin, and I just basically am fully healed every time it ticks. We're fantastic. We love it, right? So you do the Lesser Charms of Good Fortune and the Elder Charms of Good Fortune, right? You would need I think it was like 90 Elder Charms of Good Fortune, or Lesser Charms of Good Fortune, to make one Elder Charm of Good Fortune. I forget the exact currency, but you got the Lesser Charms through doing world content, dailies, raids, bosses, rares, things like that, and you would get them throughout the week. And you could eventually buy up to 2 rerolls. Well, in this case, if you get those keys from doing content or quests, it's essentially the same thing, but instead of having the intermediary item, it's just, oh, you did the quest. Okay, well, cool. We're going to give you key 1, 2, 3, possibly. That's the speculation.
But also allow us to offer and pace out the best rewards. They're on par with some other endgame content to make sure it's not, infinitely grindable or anything like that. But it's an extension of your outdoor world loop if this is your playstyle.
Now, the reason why he mentions the infinite grindable is because players in World of Warcraft, right, will optimize for the best gear path. It's one of the reasons why Mythic Plus is so popular, is because it's the best path to gear, especially when you're with a group of people that know what they're doing. Because even if, hypothetically, let's say you run 4 20-level keys, you are at the top of the player base. Most of the players do not run that level, right? If you could look at there's some website that tracks stats to see like how many people have KSM, right? And that's those are 15s, and there's going to be less people that have KSH, which is Keystone Hero, than KSM, because Keystone Hero is 2,500. So let's say hypothetically that you track that out. If you run 4 20s successfully, you complete 4 20s, you get that's 2 slots in your vault that have the max level item currently. Now, I think in the next patch, they're dropping it to 18, which is fine. I personally think it should be 15, and anything above 15 should be for KSH, and that should just be bragging rights, or maybe extra pieces drop. Again, I don't remember if that actually happens. So, if this is infinitely grindable, and it's easy to do, and it's a viable path to gear, people will do it. And then it will become mandatory, and then people will hate it.
Now, let's say you come back to the same delve on another day. You might find that there isn't a magical darkness settled over the place. Instead, there are earthen locked in battle with kobolds, and you can help turn the tide of that fight as you work your way through, dealing with some different challenges along the way. Variety, replayability, lots of layers to the experience.
Now that's good. The fact that so you have a set you have a point where you can, okay, this is where the delve is. But depending on what I do, or the day it is, or whatever, it can change and be a different encounter entirely. That is good. Because now you have, it's not always, oh, okay, well, I gotta kill 9 kobolds to get the candles, to go to the left, and then to the right, and then down the middle to get all of the keys for the chest. Now it's, maybe I just have to burn a bunch of things down, and I can get the keys that way, and then we can just go straight for that because I've killed enough to account for the bonuses or things like that. Again, variety in playstyle is good, and because he mentioned that the delves suit your playstyle, as a solo DPS or a solo healer or a solo tank, I should be fine.
Now, so you venture back out into the zone, heading off to a different corner of it, and you come across this cave surrounded by mushrooms. It's known in legends as Fungal Folly. Now, maybe not being the wisest adventurer, that sounds like a great place to enter, so you take a few steps forward. In here, you might find an environment where, whether it's due to unusual ores or whatever in the walls, the rules of gravity are a bit topsy-turvy. And you'll find mushrooms scattered around the cave. that you can use as basically jump pads to help navigate the environment, to skip over enemies you want to avoid, to reach high up ledges that you couldn't otherwise get to.
That is fantastic. Being able to use the environment to bypass certain mechanics or certain enemies is fantastic. It's one of the reasons I don't like skips generally in dungeons, because a lot of times the skips seem like they're not meant to work. But if you design a dungeon where, or a delve in this case, where skips are built in, that I like it, because that means it's guaranteed to work. As opposed to, like, I remember way back in the Everbloom, right before they fixed it, you would go you go through the first path, then you hang a left, and then you go up to the hill, and then people pull out the Traveler's Tundra Mammoth, kick off two of the merchants, and bam, there you go. Put them on there, and now you've got one person who knows how to do the jump, can carry 3 people up there. You walk down, you fight Brittlebark or Witherbark, and then you come back and you skip a whole bunch of trash. Ultimately, it's not a problem, but I think that always annoyed me. And then, of course, there was the one where you would go around the house and then up, and you'd skip a bunch of other trash too in the same dungeon. Skips are fine as long as I think they're designed. And even if they're not designed, if they're not hot-fixed, then I think it's fine too.
You're starting to get the idea, like, this is more the world as toy vibe that we try to play with when we're creating outdoor events, outdoor spaces. These are not mechanics you'd necessarily find in a dungeon, but I think the team really is unshackled, is freed to explore a much wider array of gameplay when we're building delves.
And for the record, I want to say that that's a good thing. The people who make this game are some of the best in the industry, if not the best. And we can argue that in the comments below if you want to. It's fine. But think about it this way: is you give them creative freedom to explore and do what they want and create a good product, they're going to do that. And especially, again, with the new acquisition of Microsoft, of Activision Blizzard King, I think hopefully we'll see some really cool things coming out of that.
So let's talk a bit more about the loot. So actually, before we talk about the loot, these are the 12 delves that we currently have planned, scattered throughout the 4 zones, each themed around the ecologies.
All right, let's take a look at this real quick. It says 12 delves currently planned, leaving open for more, of course. So we've got the Isle of Dorn, that's the Earthcrawl Mines, Kriegval's Rest, Fungal Folly. He mentioned 2 of those, the Earthcrawl Mines and, no, I definitely mentioned Fungal Folly. I don't know if it's the Earthcrawl Mines. Then we have the Raining Deeps, the Waterworks and the Dread Pit, Hollowfall, Skittering Breach, Nightfall Sanctum, the Sinkhole, and Mycomancer Cavern. Oh, like mushrooms and spores. That's kind of cool. Aj Kahet had the Spiral Weave, Rethrathon Abyss, and Deepwalker Hold. Okay, so those seem like really cool things. Those, they all seem to be kind of iconic and have cool stuff. I'm actually excited. Honestly, the one that I think I want to see the most, all right, is Mycomancer Cavern. And I'll tell you guys why. When I played Rift years and years ago, I was a Chloromancer, basically like a fungus mage. And you were a healer, so you'd throw spores out that would damage and spores out that would heal, and then you'd channel life and cause growth. It was a really cool concept of like a fungal mage. It was really cool. I loved it. It was great. I think I always like dealing with stuff like that. So I think that'd be really cool. The Dread Pit, just reminds me of, I don't know. These will be really cool. I think these will be really cool. In the comments below, tell me which one you think sounds the best out of all these.
Themed around the settings that you're going to find. Now, some of the attentive among you may be saying, wait a minute, Morgan's slide said there were 13 delves yesterday. He might be right, but there also might be a secret delve that you have to explore a bit more to discover. That awaits you.
Okay, that's cool. Actual rewards for exploration is good. Because again, it takes me back to Legion and Suramar, right? You gain when you activated the ley lines. Not only eventually did you get an achievement, but it actually made you more efficient at what you were doing, and so that was great. Yeah.
So yeah, loot. Part of being a seasonal pillar means going to the Great Vault every week and getting to share in that disappointment that your raiding and dungeon playing brethren.
Okay, so
have also had the pleasure to enjoy.
Now, we talked about disappointment. What's interesting is the vault is way better than the cache, right? Because now you can choose. Ultimately, if it were up to me, I would say, hey, you get to choose an item of that level. You could just choose it. Whatever and then that way, no matter what it is, you've got it. And you'd be like, but Nim, isn't that too fast? Well, I think the average, if you use 2-handed weapons, you have 15 slots. So that's 15 weeks. If you use if you use a sword and shield or two one-handers, you have 16 slots. So that's 16 weeks. So either 4 months or a week less than 4 months. And that's if you run something every week on every character. And even if you only run 1 week, it doesn't matter. I'm still subbed for that month. Your KPI is met. So that's my personal fix. But the Vault is better. And now we all remember there were bugs where they were like, hey, why do I keep getting pants? And that is the thing. Ultimately, I think that every time you open this up, it should be a happy time. Unless you've already accomplished everything. Like, I was on a Mythic Raid team here this last year, and at a certain point, like we've got everything, so it's fine. But you look at it and be like, we've got everything. It doesn't get any stronger. So we got to get sockets.
We just want to make sure you don't feel left out. So you're welcome. So you'll note this isn't a Delves row, this is a World row. And really that is enshrining these 3 PvE pillars: raids, dungeons, world. You'll be able to unlock some of these slots doing select outdoor world activities, as well as, of course, Delves with better rewards from higher difficulty Delves. Our thinking in terms of the rewards here, this is all subject to tuning, is that this should reach to, let's say, end boss heroic raid, mythic 10 to 15 type range, accessible just via solo progression.
That is so fantastic. Oh my God. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, if you can tell me that I can get heroic raid gear from doing world content, I'm with that. Now, obviously, that's the hardest content. You got to build to it. You do stuff, whatever. That's fine. But as a solo player, I don't have necessarily time to pug raid all the time, or let's say my guild doesn't want it, or I miss it, or whatever. I can get I have a path to heroic raid gear or heroic raid gear quality from solo world content. Yeah, that's excellent. That is so much player freedom. I am here for that. And of course, again, it's subject to tuning. Because honestly, I would have thought it would have only been, up to normal, and then you do the heroic rating and then the Mythic Plus. But that's fine. And I'm not. But Nim, should it be, as high as Mythic rating? I don't know. It's up to them. But the fact is that it can get you fairly strong for the patch that we're in. So I'm with that, because again, I don't know how much of the player base is actively Mythic rating or running dungeons that are above a 15. But I can only imagine that it's not that much, and that at least a fourth, or at least 20% of the people who run it are being carried, because I see trade chat all the time. You guys see trade chat. Selling services, selling services, selling services, selling services. Well, if those didn't sell, people wouldn't do it.
Far better loot than you've ever been able to get before. And now, I'm sure this is, I know this is the Delve section, but I'm sure there's folks looking at this and being like, wait a minute, what about the PvP row?
I mean, you can just get rid of it, in my opinion. It's fine. Just get rid of it. It's fine. PvPers, they always tell me that they're very skilled, and they like to just do it for the love of it. So just do it for the love of it. That's fine. You can get rid of the PvP row. Doesn't bother me. I'm kidding. Let the PvPers have a reward too.
Don't worry. We got you. We are removing the PvP row from the vault. We're doing that based largely on feedback that we've heard that randomness and PvP gearing maybe are not the best combination. I know it took a few years to get that message through to us.
But somehow randomness and PvE gearing is. I'd be interested in seeing what the difference is between PvP gearing and PvP and PvE gearing vis-a-vis randomness, because ultimately, it's you have to reach a certain number to complete objective. So, and there may be room to batter back and forth, but it's an idea.
So the way this is going to work is instead you're going to get a whole lot more conquest.
Okay,
you're going to gear up at the same rate overall, but you will have complete control over your gearing path, just spending your conquest on the items that you want. With easier catch-up, if you come in late in the season, you don't have to worry about having missed certain vault weeks. Also, if you're someone who PvPs a lot and you raid, You don't have the awkward choice of that raid trinket versus the PvP item that's going to help your arena partners. So,
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
hopefully, just good news for everyone.
Yeah, I think it is.
Now, aside from, just power, also, you get silly hats. Nothing more to say here. These just...
I love the candles. I absolutely love the candles.
These are just a few examples of the array of cosmetic rewards that will be exclusive to delves, reflecting the varied ecologies and environments you're going to be facing. So, silly hats, World of Warcraft.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Less silly, just as, let's say, Mythic Plus players have a mount that they can earn over the course of a given season, this customizable flying mount will be exclusively available through thorough completion of the delve experience.
That looks so cool. I'm here for that. Like, that looks so cool because a lot of the machine mounts generally are locked off behind like engineering, stuff like that, like the gyrocopter and such. And I mean, there are some that are great. Like I have like the Holy Robot from the Army of Light in Legion, and you've got the Sky Golem, but that's an engineering one. I mean, these things, yes. And again, that right there shows that they're making a commitment to making it a world pillar, because now they're designing a reward in addition to the other rewards for a seasonal thing. So that's awesome, because again, I like getting the KSM mounts. I've gotten 2 of them before. I never really cared so much, but then I gave it a try, and it's like, oh, this isn't that hard. So yeah.
You'll note the customizability of it. This will be customizable the same way you can customize your current dragon riding drakes at the rostrum. Just modularly.
Good notes. Hey, you're learning, and they're doing great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love our artists. Okay.
Warbands.
Up next. Warbands. I feel like I could probably just save 10 minutes of this panel by just saying account-wide everything and just click through the next slides. But
he laughs at that, right? But account-wide everything is important, because now, no matter what I play on, I am at least somewhat caught up if I do alts, and that is fantastic.
Kind of that. So, I don't know if you guys know this, but turns out y'all play a lot of alts.
Yeah.
I'm sure that actually the number of characters per person in this room in particular is like some insane average. But the average WoW player today plays multiple characters. The two-thirds of players who have a level 70 have multiple level 70s. Half of players have 3 or more. Most people are playing.
Now, the reason why I believe his numbers here is because that's the executive game director speaking at a trade conference, essentially for the product. I believe that those numbers that are sourced internally. It's not like, oh, we downloaded an add-on and checked some things. It's like, they have access to the literal player data. So, again, trust him when he says that.
Playing multiple characters a week. And that's not something the game, it's no secret, has always done the best job of supporting. Now, part of that is because World of Warcraft 20 years ago was built with very different assumptions. And I both mean design-wise, but actually engineering-wise as well. The infrastructure and the architecture that was built. Back then, it took hundreds of hours to level a single character, of course, and playing alt seriously was far, far from the norm. But we've kind of inherited, we have been working with those foundations to this day. And so when we get requests for them, when we talk about alt friendliness, we try to do it, but we're often we're swimming upstream, given the underpinnings of a system that were never designed for this.
I want to point something out here, that this is where Ian is talking about the fundamental challenges of the design stage, right? Like the thing is like, okay, we built something and now we have to kind of counter build something, and that we run into problems. And that's important because a lot of times you'll have people on like Twitter or something be like, oh, well, how come you can't just add this? It's like, well, that's actually a lot of work. So I like the communication and the not just like, oh, it's hard, but like, this is why it's hard. And he explained, again, back in vanilla, it took a long time to level to 60. And then you had to gear. And then you had to raid. And it's like, so if you were playing it, you might play an alt later, but you're not playing alts right away.
And that's why you get some, frankly, pretty clunky solutions. Like, well, if you want to transfer this currency to your alt, go to a vendor and spend some to buy a different box that contains account-bound currency that you can then mail to yourself, log out, log back in, take the box out of your mailbox, and open it on your alt. Congratulations, you have moved 300 supplies.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. That's laborious.
Design, ladies and gentlemen.
That's laborious.
What if we didn't have to do that? So at its core, Warbands is, what if we just rebuilt those foundations and
That is fantastic.
created a new future, both for the things we want to offer today and the things we'll be able to in the future, so we're not fighting against the nature of the system, but instead it complements what we want to do. Now, the focus here is really making it convenient, removing barriers, removing awkwardness in playing alts. We don't want to actively necessarily encourage it. People already want to do it if they do it. One thing the system is not going to be is something that awards you power or makes your main more effective because you have done things on other characters or anything along those lines.
So it seems like it's designed to eliminate barriers for catch-up, but not for pushing one character forward. And that's good, because if there was a way to have multiple characters push one character forward, then it would become mandatory for high-end rating PvP or Mythic Plus. But if everything kind of flows downhill from your main to alts, then that means that instead of, having people push something higher, your main raises the floor.
If you want to play alts, do so. If you just love focusing on a single character, that shouldn't feel wrong either.
I'm usually a single character kind of guy for the most part, just because I like to really nail down a rotation and nail down stuff. But that doesn't mean that I won't occasionally switch mains. But it's if I'm leveling a new character, that's generally the main. And then I'll try it for a while, see what goes on, and then if it works, great, and if not, okay. I try not to switch mains more than once a patch, just because raid gear, right? If I'm raiding, I don't want, especially when I'm raiding with a guild, I don't want to take up a bunch of gear and then switch. Now, that being said, it hasn't always worked out. I usually end up back on my paladin. So, just throwing that out there.
Now let's talk about some examples.
Currency! Currency. Ah, currency.
Okay, so I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. They're mostly fairly straightforward. It's a bank. It's an account-wide bank.
Yes! Yes!
Hopefully, you should never again have to mail something to yourself. You also might notice, and so this is giant, lots of storage, extra tabs that can be purchased on the right-hand side, so multiple tabs of these. You can organize them as you want. The very observant, the eagle-eyed, will notice a little checkbox mentioning reagents. If you deposit reagents here, you can craft from the account-wide storage on any of your characters.
Now that is fantastic. Being able to craft from account-wide storage. Oh, like, that means that there's no longer a thing. Hopefully we don't run into what happened with the crests, right? The crests in Dragonflight were really good. It was a cool idea. You got your Whelpling and your Drake and your Worm and your Aspects. Like, those are great. But eventually, people ended up with, like, I've got, extra aspects. What am I going to do with them? I've already got my embellishments. I've already got my stuff crafted. What am I going to do? Please let me send them to alts. No. But now, hopefully, if we run into a similar system with flight stones and things like that, we can put it in a bank, and now it's just anybody who needs it on your account can take it. Once your main's geared and fine, okay, well, your main doesn't need it anymore. Now you go to Alt 1. Your Alt 1's good? Okay, well, now Alt 2. Alt 2's good? Okay, well, Alt 3.
Next up, maybe a little new thing. Something that you might put in this account-wide storage are the ability we will now have to create war-bound items that are war-bound until equipped.
Oh my God. Warbound until equipped. So that means I can drop it in the bank, then a character that needs it can equip it, then it becomes soulbound. It's essentially account-wide BOE. Yes! Yes!
You might get an item that you can't sell in the auction house or trade, but that you can give to any of your other characters for their use.
That is fantastic. Like, knocking it out of the park here, guys.
Now, these items would drop as bonus personal loot from doing a variety of content. They would drop at a slightly lower item level than what that content would normally give you. Again, we want to make sure the right way to play is not playing on multiple characters to funnel loot to your main.
Again, the fact that he's specifying how the loot is going to drop means they've really thought this system through, and it is intentionally designed. Because, again, I remember the Azerite armor fiasco. It wasn't that great. A good idea, kind of terrible execution. So the fact that they're explicitly, game directors like, hey, this is how it works. It's going to be a lower level. It drops at a lower thing, but it's also personal loot, so it doesn't take up any extra loot drops that would happen for the party. That's fantastic. That means that if you get lucky with RNG, you just get lucky and it's fine. You didn't take away anything from anybody else. And here's the cool thing is that if it's tradable still, meaning if it's like, okay, well, you got some bonus personal loot, well, my alt doesn't actually need a dagger, right? Well, oh, hey, my alt does. Can I have it? Yeah, sure, you go. If I can do that, then it's a perfect system, basically.
To gear up your main faster, but just easy potential hand-me-downs, ways of getting an alt caught up, maybe even an excuse to level an alt if you get a really cool item for a class that you haven't had a chance to get up yet. So just an extra layer here, hopefully, making it easier than ever to progress, to accomplish your goals on multiple characters.
Sounds great. I'm so hyped for that.
Right,
I'm actually hyped
quick
for
rundown
this.
of some of the other integrations we have planned. Transmog. Transmog has always been, it's been for a long time an account-wide collection. Key thing here now that really it is being acquired by your warband. That means that now if you were running, let's say, Ulduar on your mage and a pair of plate shoulders drop, you can still add those plate shoulders to your warband collection.
I'm not a big transmog enthusiast, but that is an excellent change.
Yeah, self-explanatory. And then, if you log on your warrior later, your warrior can equip them, you're good to go. Hopefully you don't need to feel like you need to refarm the same stuff on as many different armor types anymore. Reputations, again, fairly straightforward. In War Within, reputations and renowns will work account-wide. We want to make this as retroactive as possible. That will take some work over time. We're probably
Oh my god. Having account-wide renown is a huge deal. Because that's the thing, like right now in Dragonflight, you get Word of a Worthy Ally, which, at level 20, if you start a fresh character, and they're at level 0, or working towards level 1 for that faction, they will, up to level 10, they'll gain 200% renown, then after 10 to 20, they'll gain 100% increased renown, and then from 20 to either 25 or 30, it's just normal gains. That's a pretty good fix, but it's also just why? Why not? Why do I not already have access to that? So again, I liked it. This is a good idea, and I appreciate that to create a system like that, to go from single character to account wide, is going to take time, and so yeah. But the fact that that's mentioned is a great thing because I like to grind reputations. I have the 100 Exalted Reputation achievement. The pure-hearted Corsair. I like that. And so yeah, I'm there.
We're going to start with Dragonflight renowns as a focus and a priority and work our way backwards. But going forward, we want progress earned on reputations to not really matter which character you're doing it on. At the end of the day, it's the same content, it's the same experience. If you've gained access to some perk or some recipe, having to re-earn it, not terribly compelling.
Agreed. So agreed.
Here's a really light example, a simple one, just flight paths. As you explore the world, you learn flight paths, you discover flight paths. Is it terribly compelling to have to go back to a spot that you've already been to in multiple characters just to learn a flight path for the 4th time? No.
That's great. That's fantastic. And also, I mean, and to be fair, they sell a toy for what, 10,000 gold for each expansion, right? It's a scouting map that unlocks all the flight points. So, yeah. I mean, they probably will still have that toy so that you could learn everything if you wanted to. But also the war bands would make that you wouldn't need it. So if you want to collect a toy, that's fine. If not, you want to explore, that's fine. But the fact that your warband has that knowledge, fantastic.
If you have a flight path network unlocked, you have that unlocked across your warband going forward. And here's an example of something new, just delves. An example of how having this as a foundation means that we can build new systems to inherently work at an account-wide level, just kind of as part of their DNA. As you are advancing Bran as a companion, as you are empowering him, as you're customizing him, again, logging on to a different character and going back to having a weaker Bran that doesn't offer the tools that you've grown accustomed to, That's more frustrating than fun to re-earn those things. Let's make that progression inherently warband level, inherently account-wide.
That's fantastic. How are you knocking this all out of the park?
And achievements. We've had account-wide achievements for a long time. You know,
Yeah.
No secret, they have the little blue bar over them, indicating that they function at an account-wide level. What Warbands allows us to do is kind of invert that paradigm and change the vast majority of our achievements to be account-wide, to have that actually be the new default. So if you do part of this PvP or crafting or other achievement on one character, part of it on another, your warband can earn the achievement. Once your warband earns it, you've earned it. Again, you, the player, are doing the thing.
Well, that's fantastic. I really like that.
Oh yeah, and then this.
Okay, how cool is that? Just having all of your characters around that you can pick instead of the, like, don't get me wrong, I like the standard, you know, the very standard thing, but that's really cool.
To kind of signal this shift up front, there's no like mechanical functionality here, but just in terms of presentation, what you'll see when you log into World of Warcraft with multiple characters is a selection of your favorite characters huddled around a campfire or another setting. You'll still have your full list accessible, but we want to make it clear that like you, the player, have this cast of characters that if you want to dress them all up in consistent transmogs, go wild. One thing you might note here, if you're very eagle-eyed, also by the way, if you're very eagle-eyed, don't read too much into things like the evoker wearing leather. That's just, it's internal mock-ups. We're not changing anything crazy there. Sorry. But you will note that the evoker is level 13. That's going to be a thing that's possible because they'll start at level 10. But because Dragonflight's going to be the new leveling expansion, by the way, going forward.
Okay.
One thing you might notice is there isn't really much here about realm selection. Warbands are a realm-agnostic, faction-agnostic feature. You will just see all your characters here. If they're on different servers, we'll make it clear that they're on different servers. But you shouldn't have to like go to the change realm screen and swap.
That is so cool. The fact that it's faction and realm agnostic means it doesn't matter where I create it. It's Warband.
Around. They're just all here.
Oh, that's... Why is this so good? Seriously, this is like a new game.
Okay. Hero talents. So, at their core, this is a chance for us, as we continue to evolve and advance our class system, to explore some deeper class fantasies, to look at iconic archetypes like the Farseer or the Dark Ranger or the Mountain King, or others often inspired by major heroes in the Warcraft universe, other times by fantasies that we've heard are really resonant with players, and focus the continued expansion of our classes in that space. Now, Morgan said this yesterday, just to restate, this is a completely flexible system. It's as flexible as your current talents and specs. Nothing like covenants or anything like that. Anytime you could change your talents today, you can change your hero spec, you can swap around your hero talents. They're just talents.
Okay, that's good. The problem with talents, and as y'all know, some talents just aren't as good as other talents. And that's a balancing issue, and it's hard to... It's hard. That is a truth that you cannot get past. So I just want to mention that, but it sounds cool. Again, innovation, I'm here for it.
Now, some of our goals here, of course, we want to offer progression, but we want to do so, frankly, while managing complexity to a certain extent. When we started planning for War Within, we knew, all right, we're going to raise the level cap by 10. 10 new levels means 10 new talent points.
Okay.
The kind of default option for us would have been to take the existing class and spec trees and just add a couple more rows to each of them, add new points to spend.
Sure.
But we've been down that path before. We know exactly where that leads 15 years ago. There's a tremendous amount, there's an insane amount of like multiplicative combinatoric complexity from adding those additional options. And it also destroys some carefully constructed choices that are really successful that we've just built up in Dragonflight today, where you can't quite have all of these things and need to pick one or the other. Suddenly, when you can get all of them, it can lead towards homogeneity as well. So this approach allows us to both explore deeper class fantasy while focusing the decision space in a way that offers power without that excessive complexity. So the way it's generally going to look is a third talent tree. Again, as mentioned yesterday, at the center of your screen, you have class, you have talent, and in the middle, you have hero talents.
Okay, that is a pretty elegant solution, right? I'll be honest with you. Now, I'm not a druid, so a lot of this is nature nonsense and whatever to me. But I'm sure that my druid friends are like, yeah, that makes a lot. I can see this looks good. But this is a pretty good solution, I would say. Honestly, I would be happy if it launched like that, because now I press N, all of my talents are right there. I mouse over them, I see tooltips. We're fantastic. So yeah, great answer.
You'll note, so there are 10 nodes. There's an initial node that you get as a starter node at the top that you'll get initially when you unlock the system at 71, and then 10 more nodes to unlock. You will get all of them on the way to 80. At level 80, you will have this fully unlocked, similar to Legion artifacts, let's say.
That's cool. So I get all of the talents. I'm digging all the talents.
So you don't have to agonize over, where you're placing any choice along the way. Now, the choices that you will make are which hero spec do you want active, and also there will be choice nodes within the trees.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's choice nodes. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 choice nodes. Nodes. 4 choice nodes. Okay, so I see that.
Does the class trees and the talent and the spec trees currently have, which you can toggle, adding quite a few permutations to the system as a whole. If you want, as a kind of simpler collapsed view, once you've hit max level, you can just condense it down to only show the choice nodes for easy swapping back and forth to customize your spec for whatever activity you're setting out to do.
Now that's interesting. The fact that, so the other talents, I still have them. It just doesn't show them because they're either passive or abilities, or they're not interactable outside of I have them. So like the only way it would be interactable is if it's like, okay, this is a special ability that I can activate, or and if it's passive, it doesn't matter. As long as it's just there. It's just treated as me having it. It might be as simple as, oh, you got extra crit, or it might be as simple or as complex as now Incanter's Flow.
Now I want to take a little bit of time to quickly walk through a couple of trees to give a sense of the sorts of things you might find in here. And all of this is subject to change.
Well, yeah.
All subject to iteration and the extensive feedback we know we're going to get. I'm going to use druids a lot as an example here. Going to focus on the case of a balanced druid. Part of why the team starts with druids is because y'all are complicated. We figure.
I feel bad for my druid brethren, sistren, and those that lie betwixt, because I've never been able to play a druid well, and I've seen some balanced druids absolutely wreck content. So for my druid friends, thank you.
There's 4 specs, 3 roles. We figure let's try some of the hardest cases first when proving out a design. It's nothing against the mages, warlocks, paladins, etc., but there's a reason why you probably tend to see more druid examples than other classes, because we figure if we can make it work for druids, the rest will be okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I would get that.
The 2 options available to a balanced druid are this Keeper of the Grove tree and Elun's Chosen. Keeper of the Grove is available to balance and restoration. Elun's Chosen is available to balance and guardian.
Okay.
The former focuses on calling the forest to your aid, on summon treants, and augmenting their abilities and what using that cooldown means for your gameplay.
Okay.
Elun's Chosen focuses on augmenting your lunar abilities, many of the arcane damage, moon-themed abilities for both specs. So let's look at the Keeper of the Grove tree first.
My concern with this, before we even get into anything else, is that, it comes down to number-wise. Ultimately, there was a thought going into Shadowlands about the Covenants. Players will pick what is thematically appropriate, what they think is good, what they like. And the answer was proven that no, players will play the optimum build. And so that's gonna be the concern with this, is that, you might have, you have easy flexibility, sure, you can change. It's not like Covenants at the beginning of Shadowlands where, hey, this is a serious thing and there's a week or 2 week cooldown and whatever. That's fine, but players will play the spec that performs the best. Theory crafters will math that out. Now, is that good, bad, whatever? It doesn't really matter. That's just what's going to happen.
The first node that you're going to get as you just opt in is just kind of a baseline improvement to your throughput while treants are out across the board. This just kind of emphasizes thematically what this tree is about and makes pushing that button, having the treants out, more important to you in every regard. Some of the nodes in these trees are just going to be simple, straightforward passives. Not everything is going to double and triple down on the same treant ability. Some will, like this, regardless of what spec you are, make your treants add additional damage. Oh, by the
Nice.
way, if anyone's worried, wait a minute, but what about the auto taunt? That's a mess in dungeons. We'll let you opt out of that. Don't worry. Or passives could just augment your abilities, your resource pool, and just make you a better druid.
Okay, yeah, I'm with it.
An example of choice node, again, this can be about doubling down on and getting more out of having the treants active. Or maybe you really don't want all of your eggs in that basket. Even though you are going into this tree, you want the treants to be important to you. You don't want 100% of your throughput to be focused in that window. You'd rather just have some baseline improvements to all of your abilities, or to some of your core abilities. This is one of the simpler choices available, but the idea is 4 different opportunities to nudge your gameplay in one direction or another within this tree. A capstone talent, again, is often likely to double down on and amplify what the initial point was, just reinforcing that having the treants out is going to be a peak, a spike in your potential, something that you're going to plan around. And
I like the fact that the beginning and capstone talents are tied together. I think that's an important thing, just because of the fact that it thematically it ties everything together. As for, again, this comes to where they show the overflowing potential and bounteous bloom. People are going to math that out and see what's the best. And so it comes down to the developer's job to make both choices mathematically similar, or at least mathematically similar enough to where doesn't really affect gameplay. So you can play either play style is viable, because if one style is, let's say, 15% more effective, it'd be like, okay, yeah, great. Now, ultimately, I will say that I personally, if there is a class that is harder to play correctly, and it does more damage when played correctly, I have no problem with that because it's a harder class.
And just amplify the overall benefits that you're achieving
Or spec.
from that. Now, pivoting to Elun's Chosen, again, this is lunar themed and shared with Guardian Druids. So the first point here is going to call out 3 specific signature abilities: 2 balance, 1 guardian.
Ooh,
and make
leech.
them meaningfully more impactful to your gameplay. If you're a guardian druid, for example, you might read this and realize that Lunar Beam is going to become a pretty powerful defensive cooldown, especially in dungeons. You have a big pull going on.
Yeah.
You're leeching a lot of damage back
Yeah.
from what you're doing. This is now something that you can really count on and plan around as you approach your gameplay. On the Moonkid side, this of course adds an extra layer to planning and throughput in your rotation. Noting a couple of these things that we're modifying, maybe deeper optional talents in your existing spec trees. We also, where we can, want to offer ways to make sure that you can trigger those effects even if you don't have the baseline talent, though you'll probably want to as well. So this talent just has Fury of Elune triggered as you're doing your regular rotation when you Moonfire, both just naturally. It's a powerful effect that's going to fire more frequently, but also to the extent that the rest of the Elun's Chosen tree is tying into it, you'll get those benefits as well.
Okay, makes sense.
A couple of more passive examples here. Again, just doubling down on magnifying your arcane lunar throughput, and a final capstone ability for this tree that is further reinforcing these core abilities that have already been augmented.
Again, good idea.
Leave
Really
this slide up for a while.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing a video speculation on the hero spec list thing, so we're not going to spend too much time on that, but it should be a lot of fun.
These are our current plans for all 39 of the hero spec, so 1 per current specialization. Some cool fantasies here to explore. Definitely really curious to hear community feedback on all of these, which are exciting, which are most resonant, which sound, frankly, maybe a bit lame. Are there any that you hoped you'd see on here that you're not seeing on here?
Crusader. Lightsmith is kind of weak.
We are well underway building these out, but it's definitely early enough for us to pivot on a lot of these if there's something the community is really excited about. I want to triple super underscore, the example talents I just gave are work in progress, very subject to change. Probably no part of the game is more prone to iteration, and for no part of the game is the community input more essential than class design, spec design.
Well, yeah, that's because that's how we interact with the world. That makes perfect sense. If I, as a Retribution Paladin generally, if Wake of Ashes is bad, I'm gonna let you know. And it was bad. Now it's gotten a lot better. You know, it's fine. It's not quite as good as it was in Legion, but it's also not quite. There's some limitations. It's fine. But my point is that Ian makes a perfect sense. Is how do you, as a healer, how do you interact with the world? Well, okay, you heal things. You do a little bit of damage. You click on stuff. You do things. How do you interact with the party? You heal your party. You kill things. You click on things. So how I do that and how I set up my ability to do that is going to be the lion's share of gameplay, at least from a player side. Then I have to throw that build and my skills against your scenario, whether it be PvP, raid, PvE, dungeon, doesn't matter.
To that end, when we move into our alpha, probably in the spring, we want to have as many, if not all of these hero specs playable.
I would love to be in the alpha. I've never been in a World of Warcraft alpha. That would be pretty sick.
From the start, so that we have the entire alpha and beta window to iterate on them, to replace the things that aren't working, to dial them all in to where everyone's going to be excited about what they're getting in War Within. It's a long road ahead. We can't wait to share that journey with you and really just collaborate, discuss back and forth every step of the way.
Now, I do want to mention there was a thing where the BFA forums, for beta forums for feedback, were deleted. I hope that doesn't happen this time. I don't think it will, based on, how much they're being open and honest, and I think personally they learned a lesson from that, but it is something to keep in mind. Now, I do also want to mention that there are 39 specs on that list, right? That's going to be a lot to create, so let's always, again, provide constructive, specific feedback. Other features.
Now some other stuff. Some you've heard about, some you haven't. First off, Aladris, you get to be an Earthen.
Yay!
Awesome blinged out dwarves, or maybe not so blinged out if you want to customize them differently. These are going to be earned just by playing through the War Within campaign fully. There's no rep to grind here, nothing else beyond that.
That's fantastic. I don't mind rep grinds. I just wish they'd let you have dungeon tabards again.
You are meeting the Earthen as, it's a first contact in essence. You're going to learn about the nature of their problems, the nature of their culture. You're going to work with them to overcome those problems, win their trust. And at the end of that journey, it will make sense. It will be a natural next step for them to lend you their aid and join you as either Horde or Alliance.
Okay, so like the Pandaren.
Horde dwarves. We haven't yet finalized what their racial abilities are going to be, but the available classes, 10 out of the 13 available classes.
Makes sense.
Everything but Druid, Demon Hunter, and Evoker.
But that's...
Now, on the right side here, you see a concept of the Heritage Armor you'll be able to earn from leveling your Earthen to max level.
Nice.
All right, Dynamic Flight.
That is fantastic. Dragon riding is an excellent way to get around the world. It being here to stay is fantastic. Then you don't have to worry about those messy Pathfinder achievements. It's just fly, go, glide. Yes, I'm with it.
So it was obvious very early on in Dragonflight, probably before Dragonflight even released in beta, that we could never go back to how it used to be. Honestly, we hoped that would be the outcome. We hoped the feedback would be, this is so awesome, we just want this to be how flying works forever. But we immediately began, making plans for what that would mean, because, it's the only way to go. And so, dragon riding is going to become the default, no longer just dragons, but dynamic flight now in War Within and beyond. We want to make sure, oh, weird, I meant to have two mounts here, but I only see Ashes on the right. But anyway.
Okay, so I talk about earlier in the video, I mentioned the sword, what sword? And then they have invincible. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. That is fantastic. I love it. But if it's invisible, how come I can see it? Yes. Yes. Thank you. If he says, hey, somebody talks about, the Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, You know, it's just like, ah.
Key point being, we want to expand this to the broader array of mounts that you have available. I think the only downside of dragon riding as it exists today is that you don't have much reason to use so many of the mounts that are your favorites visually, aesthetically, that you've earned and done so much to collect.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that as much of your collection is viable as possible.
Honestly, I want the Grand Expedition yak dragon riding. I want to fly through the air on a giant yak.
So not every single flying mount is going to be able to support dynamic flight. There's some animation logistics to work with there, but as many as we can. It's a 3-digit number. We want a very wide array of mounts being able to just fly the way you've always enjoyed with your dragons.
Yeah, no, these are excellent changes. These are excellent changes.
And just to clarify, this is the future of flying. So everywhere that you can fly today, you will be able to dynamically fly or dragon ride. In fact, not just in the War Within, a little sneak peek, I think in our upcoming 10.2.5 update, you'll be able to dragon ride in Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, Northrend, Outland, you name it.
Yes! Yes, that's fantastic!
We also understand there are some folks, for accessibility reasons, personal preference reasons, maybe you just like being able to AFK in midair, that dragon riding isn't your favorite. We don't want to take anything away. We want to let all these mounts that can currently do the old school flying mode toggle between dragon riding or let's call it TBC flying. Up to you, whatever you prefer.
That is a great thing because, again, I have friends that may have accessibility issues with certain things, and them being able to choose between that would be fantastic. Now, if I can do it on the fly, that's great. If I can do it, maybe once every time I land, I can click a buff. As simple as clicking a buff on or off, right? Simple, easy peasy. I like that. Excellent. Best of both worlds. Fantastic.
And again, to be clear, dynamic flight will be available from the very start when you go to Kazalgar on the Isle of Dorne, just as it was in Dragonflight.
Heck yeah!
Old school TBC flying, Pathfinder style, will not be available right away, but it will be unlocked shortly after reaching max level with no reputation grind requirements. Just play through the campaign, explore the continents, then you can fly that way as well.
Okay, that's fine.
The existing dragon riding glyph system in the Dragon Isles, we want to pivot that to a bit more of something that's evergreen. Some of those unlocked traits may change to only work within the Dragon Isles.
Okay.
Others that are more essential to just the experience.
Yeah, like extra vigor.
Like vigor increases, regenerates, the active abilities, are just going to be things that you will inherently get as you earn dynamic flight and level up naturally. We don't want down the line players to feel like they have to go back to an old expansion and fly around and collect a bunch of glyphs just to be able to explore the new expansion. And in that vein, this is going to be the new default for leveling players. I mentioned earlier, when War Within comes out, instead of BFA, Dragonflight will be the new leveling experience that you merge into as a new player after you leave Exile's Reach.
I think that's a good move. Battle for Azeroth had some really cool stuff. Don't get me wrong. The Daughter of the Sea is still one of the best things ever made in World of Warcraft. But I think Dragonflight as a leveling experience is way better than BFA.
And so you're going to get dragon riding very early in that experience. As you just level up, gain player levels, you will improve your flight ability and get all the vigor perks and everything else that everyone has come to expect. And that's just going to be how the game works as a baseline. This is what flight is now. Don't worry, PvPers, we haven't forgot you. This is long overdue. We should have been doing this earlier. So there's a new battleground coming in War Within. It is a 10v10 map set in the Ringing Deeps.
I'm happy for the PvPers. They deserve to have new maps. I mean, as a PvE guy, I get new dungeons every expansion, and with Mythic Plus seasons, they do revamps of old content. I'm glad that the PvPers are getting something. I don't PvP personally, but I want them to have more content to play with.
This is inspired by Silver Shard Mines with a few twists. The Ringing Deeps are a place that's full of natural resources that's very sort of thing that the Horn Alliance will be likely to skirmish over. I'm going to show you a very rough, early kind of like top-down mock-up of the layout here. The idea is,
Okay.
unlike Silver Shard Mines, which is radial symmetry, this is more, mirrored and reflects the two sides trying to both push their own minecarts to collect resources while also fighting over a pivotal central control point that's going to change the outcome and the momentum of the match.
Okay, that makes
This
sense.
is something that the team has actually been playtesting internally a bunch over the last couple of weeks, having a blast with. When we make Battleground maps, we don't really artify them. We keep them really rough, which is why I don't have any good images to show just yet, because it really is all about the layout. There's no point in making it look pretty if the spacing isn't correct, if the exact paths aren't correct. That's going to be the next step. Can't wait to get this in front of everybody to start testing in alpha and beyond. And this isn't just a one-off. We want to keep adding new Battleground maps going forward. This is an essential part of the game.
Good. Yeah, I think PvPers deserve that. They deserve to have something nice.
And I mentioned 10v10, but we are just about to undertake a little 8v8 solo queue RBG experiment in 10-2 in a week or two. So depending on how that goes, you may be experiencing this one 8v8 as well. So stay tuned.
Okay, that's dope.
Otherwise, we have a few ongoing interface updates that we're continuing to work on. In Dragonflight, we overhauled the HUD, the action bars, the unit frames, the baseline UI experience.
Edit mode.
We made it clear at the time that that was just the beginning. This is something we want to continue chipping away at, updating different pieces of the UI to be more streamlined, better reflective of the modern gameplay experience. So just a couple of examples here. So the spellbook, we are looking to modernize, update, actually make use of
that looks really
more than
good.
like a 1024 by 768 monitor resolution. Ideally, you're not going to have to flip through multiple pages to find some ability that's not on your action bars. Also, we're combining this with our talent screen. If you look at the tabs at the bottom,
Yeah,
you have
specialization,
spec,
talent, spellbook.
talents, and spells all in one place. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for all the things that your character has available, rather than having two separate windows that you need to move between.
Okay, that makes sense.
Some light updates here. I think improving the overall aesthetic of the quest log, the quest window. If this is harder to show off just in a single screenshot, but we are adding a bunch of filters to allow you to hide and show different objectives, to see more quests available at once, to filter your log for the things you care about most. We also have a full pass in progress on our quest iconography to make it easier to differentiate between daily and weekly quests and remove our reliance on just shades of color as much as we do, which really it is a color blindness issue for the range of quest bangs where the only difference is what color it is. And again, this is just a couple of examples of ongoing efforts. This is a project that will never be done. We're just going to continue improving and updating different aspects of the UI as we go.
Did I just see something about cross-realm guilds?
So this one basically speaks for itself. I've mentioned earlier, your warband is a cross-realm construct. Increasingly, so many of the activities that players engage in socially span multiple realms. You have a raid group, you have a Mythic Plus group that you run with, group that you PvP with, but you can't be in the same guild together, not any longer. That's a thing that will change when War Within comes out. Apply, recruit, server shouldn't matter when it comes to joining a guild, when it comes to being in a guild.
That is excellent. That's excellent. Because now it doesn't matter what server I play on, what faction I am, I can play with my friends. I can play with people. I can just play. You have removed an artificial barrier, and excellent.
Comes to accessing the perks of being in a guild.
Seriously, that is an excellent change.
And people may be wondering, wait a minute, what does that mean if now guilds are cross-realm? What about Mythic raiding? If your guild is cross-realm and your guild wants to raid Mythic, you should be able to do that day one.
Day one cross-realm Mythic raiding. Yes, because here's the thing. Before then, for those who don't know, right, in order to get cross-realm Mythic raiding, which is, a very niche concept, but it's harder stuff, it's great, you generally have to fill out the Hall of Fame. And it was originally the first 100 Horde guilds and the 100 Alliance guilds to get Cutting Edge, then it unlocks. Problem is we ran into an imbalance where it was the last boss of Mythic raids is often very hard. And while Method and Echo and Liquid might seem, to make it seem easy, or easier. It's very difficult, even at higher levels of gear. It takes a lot of practice. So they were like, okay, well, now it's just 200, first 200. Well, then, that became hard. So now, with day 1 cross-realm mythic rating, that's fantastic. You removed another barrier to play. Yes. No notes. Excellent.
So, no more realm restrictions there.
But, Nim, what about the world first? Look, I'm never going to be a world first raider. I'm just not that good. I'm pretty good. I can do a mythic raid. I could probably do cutting edge if I put some effort into it. And play with a team and do all that jazz. But I'm never going to be that good. And odds are, you watching this, you're not going to be that good, because that is a huge step up in difficulty and skill. So but ultimately, I just want people to be able to play the game. I don't want to have to just recruit from a server. I want to be able to go in a group finder, hey, you know what, we're putting together a mythic run. Let's go mythic run. And then I can take the people, we can try to kill some bosses, get some loot, fill out our vault, and move forward.
The Hall of Fame will still exist, just kind of as a memorial of accomplishment, but it's not going to be tied to unlocking anything anymore. That's
Great.
Just there day 1.
Sure.
And really, just philosophically, this is another step towards one of our goals of just tearing down barriers, making the game as social as possible, making it as easy as possible to play with who you want to play with, regardless of your server, regardless of your faction. As much as possible, if you want to play WoW with somebody, let's make that happen.
That is the right philosophy. I cannot stress how much. People are like, well, what if you're removing the war from Warcraft? No, you're not. You're not removing the war from Warcraft. You're playing with, you're having real players now have less artificial barriers in front of them that prevent them from playing with people they want to play with. Here's the trick. If you can't play with your friends, odds are you're not going to play as long. So, yeah. And if you still are really like, well, we want to have war. Okay, well, PvP's right there. Do that. You're right there. Flag up and let's go.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this whirlwind tour / deep dive of War Within features. I know there's still a bunch of questions, a bunch more information to share.
All right, I'm not gonna go through any more of that because he says that's the end. So guys, here's the thing, right? This has been an absolute mind-blowing experience with so many things that are happening. It's like it's gonna be a new game. I'm so excited. It was cool. I always like doing positive WoW videos because a lot of times WoW for a long time has had like a negative bias, and this is something that's fantastic. So I really enjoyed making this video. If you like the content that I do, I would appreciate a sub and a comment and whatever else YouTube tells me that you should do. You've probably seen things flash on the screen throughout this, so just keep that in mind. But what I want to throw out is, guys, thank you for watching this far if you did. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video, and may the mount that you're farming drop on the first run of the content that it drops on. I'll see you in the next video. Y'all take care. Bye.